Kenji Takeda's feet pounded against the concrete floor of Rikers Island Correctional Facility as he ran through the laundry corridor. Behind him, the heavy footsteps of 5 Iron Fist's gang members echoed like thunder. His wire-rimmed glasses bounced on his nose, his slight 140-pound frame pushing its limits as he clutched a small cloth pouch in his pocket. "Nowhere to run, little man." Marcus "Brick" Wilson's voice boomed through the hallway. The 6'4" enforcer was gaining on him, along with his crew, Rico, T-Bone, Razor, and Snake. They'd been hunting Kenji for 3 weeks, and today they'd finally cornered him during the evening laundry shift. Kenji turned a corner, his heart hammering. The laundry room was just ahead, the place he'd been preparing for this exact moment. At 5'6", and looking more like an accountant than an inmate, everyone at Rikers had assumed he was easy prey. A 30-year-old Japanese wire fraud convict serving 5 years. Quiet, bookish, harmless. They had no idea who they were chasing. End of the line. Brick's massive hand grabbed the laundry room door just as Kenji slipped through, spinning to face his pursuers as they flooded in after him. The industrial washing machines hummed around them. The smell of bleach and detergent filled the air. No guards in sight, exactly as Brick had planned it. Kenji backed against the far wall, adjusting his glasses with trembling fingers. But inside, his mind was calm, focused. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Kenji-kun, when the enemy believes they have you trapped, that is when you spring the trap you have prepared for them." "3 weeks you've been dodging us," Brick said, cracking his knuckles as the 5 men formed a semicircle. "Thought you could hide forever? Time to pay the welcome tax, fish. And since you made us work for it, the price just went up." Kenji's hand slipped into his jumpsuit pocket, fingers closing around the pouch he'd been preparing since his first week at Rikers. "I tried to avoid this," he said quietly. "I gave you every chance to leave me alone." "Too late for that," Rico laughed, pulling out a sock filled with batteries. "A prison weapon. We're gonna teach you how things work in here." Kenji took a deep breath. "My grandfather always said, the wise warrior avoids the battle. But when battle cannot be avoided, strike first with the element of surprise." His voice was steady now, fear replaced by ancestral discipline. "I am Kenji Takeda, last direct descendant of the Takeda samurai clan, and you just made a terrible mistake." "What the hell are you?" Brick started. Kenji moved. In one fluid motion, he pulled out the pouch and hurled its contents directly onto the floor in front of the gang members. White powder exploded upward. A carefully mixed combination of industrial bleach powder, concentrated ammonia compounds, and detergent he'd been collecting for 3 weeks. The chemical cloud erupted like a bomb. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, subscribe to Behind Bars Tales for more incredible true stories from inside America's prisons. Hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. The concentrated chemicals hit the gang members' faces like acid. Eyes burned, throats seized. All 5 men stumbled backward, coughing violently, clawing at their streaming eyes, temporarily blinded by the caustic mixture. "I can't see!" Snake screamed, falling to his knees. "My eyes are on fire!" Rico dropped his weapon, hands covering his face. "What did you throw?" Brick roared, bent over double, tears pouring down his cheeks. Kenji had already wrapped a damp cloth around his nose and mouth, prepared as always. He'd tested the mixture on himself in small doses over 3 weeks, building tolerance, calculating exact ratios. He knew it would incapacitate them for approximately 90 seconds before they'd begin recovering. 90 seconds to end this threat permanently. His grandfather's voice echoed. The samurai understood that honor and practicality were not enemies. Use every advantage the enemy gives you. Their underestimation is your greatest weapon. Kenji stepped forward, his body moving into the stance his grandfather had drilled into him since age 6. This wasn't rage. This wasn't revenge. This was technique. This was 500 years of warrior wisdom compressed into this single moment. "You wanted to teach me how things work here," Kenji said, his voice clear and steady through the cloth. "Let me teach you something instead." T-Bone lunged blindly toward Kenji's voice, swinging wild haymakers. Kenji moved like water around stone, minimal movement, maximum efficiency. He struck with precision, a knife hand strike to the solar plexus that folded T-Bone like paper. The big man collapsed, gasping for air. Snake came next, crawling forward trying to grab Kenji's legs. A knee strike to the temple, controlled, measured, and Snake went limp. "Stop moving," Brick shouted, still blinded, swinging his massive fists at empty air. "Stand still so I can kill you." "A samurai never stands still," Kenji replied. Rico charged, eyes streaming but recovering faster than the others. He was experienced, dangerous, but he'd never fought someone trained in authentic martial arts. Kenji sidestepped, redirected Rico's momentum, and used a judo throw that sent him crashing into a washing machine with a thunderous clang. Razor had seen enough. Even half blind, he recognized the sound of his crew being dismantled. He turned to run, but Kenji swept his legs with a low kick, precise as a scalpel, and Razor went down hard on the concrete. That left Brick, the enforcer, the leader, the man who'd made Kenji's 3 weeks at Rikers a living nightmare of threats, stolen commissary, and constant intimidation. Brick was rubbing his eyes frantically, vision starting to clear. He was massive, powerful, with years of prison fighting experience. In any normal fight, his size advantage would be insurmountable. But Kenji's grandfather had taught him that size was an illusion, a weakness if you understood leverage and pressure points. "You're dead," Brick snarled, blinking rapidly as his vision returned. "When I can see clearly, you're dead." "No," Kenji said, removing the cloth from his face. His glasses had survived intact, a small blessing. "When you can see clearly, you'll understand that I am not prey. I am a warrior, and warriors know when to avoid battle and when to end it decisively." Brick charged, still partially blinded, but relying on size, rage, and the memory of Kenji's position. It was a mistake. Kenji waited until the last possible second, then moved forward and to the side, inside Brick's guard where those massive arms couldn't generate power. He struck the pressure points his grandfather had taught him. Nerve clusters in Brick's right arm that made it go numb instantly, a precise strike to the knee that buckled the leg, a palm strike to the chest that expelled all air from Brick's lungs. The giant fell like a demolished building, crashing to the concrete with an impact that shook the washing machines. Kenji stood over him, breathing controlled, not even winded. 5 men down. 87 seconds. Exactly as he'd calculated. Around him, the 5 gang members groaned and gasped, their eyes still streaming, their bodies aching from strikes they'd barely seen coming. Kenji walked to the supply closet and began pulling out towels. "Clean your faces," he said, tossing towels to each of them. "The burning will stop in a few minutes. The chemicals were non-lethal. I designed them that way. Industrial supplies mixed in specific ratios I calculated carefully." Brick tried to sit up and failed, collapsing back onto the concrete. You planned this. For 3 weeks, you let us intimidate you while you planned this." "Yes," Kenji said simply. He began helping each man to a sitting position against the wall, the same men who'd just tried to hurt him. "My grandfather taught me, the patient warrior wins before the battle begins. I knew you would eventually corner me somewhere isolated. The laundry room seemed most likely, blind spots in camera coverage, evening shift with minimal guard presence, so I prepared." He gestured to the chemical supplies. "I work laundry duty. Every day I collected small amounts of different cleaning agents, tested combinations, built up my own tolerance, calculated exact ratios for maximum incapacitation with minimum permanent damage. That's not ninja tactics. That's Sun Tzu. That's samurai strategy." T-Bone, his voice raspy from the throat strike, asked, "What happens now? You going to the guards?" "No," Kenji said firmly. "That would be dishonorable and dangerous. I understand prison rules, but I'm establishing a new rule. I am not a victim. I am Kenji Takeda, last direct descendant of the Takeda samurai clan. My great-great-grandfather served as master swordsman to the emperor. My grandfather spent 40 years teaching me the old ways, not for sport, but for survival, and I will be treated with respect." He looked at each man in turn. "I don't want to be your enemy. I don't want to fight again. But if you come after me, I will defend myself, and next time I might use something stronger than laundry chemicals." Rico wiped his eyes, vision finally clearing. "You're serious about the samurai thing?" "Completely serious. My grandfather, Takeda Hiroshi, was born in 1920, trained in the traditional ways before they were lost to modernization. He taught me karate, judo, aikido, and kenjutsu, the sword arts. From age 6 to 16, I trained with him every single day, 3 hours every morning before school. The way of the warrior, bushido, became part of my identity. But you're in here for fraud, Snake said, confused. Wire fraud. You're a white-collar criminal. Yes, Kenji admitted, his voice heavy with shame. I embezzled money from my company to pay for my mother's cancer treatments. I committed a crime. I deserve to be here. But being a criminal doesn't erase my heritage. The warrior code doesn't vanish because I made terrible choices. Brick finally managed to sit up, his arms still numb. You could have killed us. Those strikes, that chemical mixture, you could have done permanent damage, but you didn't. Why? Bushido, Kenji said. The samurai code has 7 virtues: rectitude, courage, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. I failed several when I committed my crime, but I try to uphold them now. True strength is restrained strength. A warrior doesn't seek unnecessary harm. I defended myself with minimum force needed to establish boundaries. That night, word spread through Rikers like wildfire. The small Japanese guy, the quiet wire fraud convict everyone thought was an easy mark, had taken down 5 Iron Fist members using chemistry and martial arts. The story grew with each telling, but the core truth remained. Kenji Takeda was dangerous. His cellmate, an older convict named Jerome Washington, who'd been down 15 years, stared at him with new eyes. Man, I bunked with you for 3 weeks. Thought you were just some scared white-collar guy, but you're something else entirely. Kenji lay on his bunk, reading a book on Japanese history his sister had sent. I am a scared white-collar guy, he said quietly. I embezzled $200,000 because I was desperate to save my mother. I'm guilty of that crime. But being a criminal doesn't erase who I was before. My grandfather's teachings don't disappear because I made bad choices. You showed mercy, Jerome observed. Could have blinded those guys permanently with those chemicals. Could have broken bones with those strikes. But you held back. That takes real control. Bushido, Kenji said. The samurai code. It teaches that the greatest warrior is the one who never has to draw his sword. The second greatest is the one who draws his sword but controls exactly how much force to use. I'm trying to be the second type, since the first type is impossible in prison. 3 days later, something unprecedented happened. Brick came to Kenji's cell, alone, unarmed, with an expression of humility that shocked everyone who knew him. Takeda, Brick said. Can we talk? Jerome tensed, but Kenji nodded calmly. Sit. Brick lowered his massive frame onto the cell's small stool. I've been thinking about what you said, about how size is an illusion, about restraint being real strength, and I realized something. I've been living wrong. Kenji closed his book and sat up. What do you mean? I've been down 8 years, got 7 more to go. All that time, I thought power meant being the biggest, the scariest, the one everyone fears. But you're half my size, and you took down 5 of us without breaking a sweat. And then you showed us mercy. That's real power. I want to learn that. You want to learn martial arts? Kenji asked, surprised. I want to learn how to be strong without always fighting, how to have respect without fear, how to... Brick struggled for words. How to be more than just muscle and anger. Can you teach me that? Kenji studied him carefully. This was unexpected. Dangerous, even. Brick could be setting a trap. But Kenji saw something in the big man's eyes, genuine desire for change. The martial arts take years to learn, Kenji said, and the guards would never allow serious combat training. But I can teach you the philosophy, the mental discipline, the code that makes the physical techniques work. That's where real strength begins, in the mind, not the body. Then teach me that, Brick said, please. The next day, Kenji and Brick met in the prison yard. Other inmates watched with confusion and suspicion, the feared enforcer sitting with the man he'd tried to beat just days ago. But Kenji had agreed to teach, and he took the responsibility seriously. Bushido means the way of the warrior, Kenji explained, sitting cross-legged under a tree. It's built on 7 virtues. First is Ji, rectitude, or doing what's right. Second is Yu, courage, not just in battle but in daily life. Third is Jin, benevolence and compassion for others. Brick listened intently, his massive frame folded awkwardly as he tried to sit in the same meditative pose. Compassion? For people in prison? Especially for people in prison, Kenji said. Everyone here made mistakes. Everyone here is suffering. Jin means recognizing that suffering and not adding to it unnecessarily. That's why I didn't permanently harm you or your crew. You're human beings who made bad choices, just like me. Over the following weeks, Kenji taught Brick about the remaining virtues: Rei, respect; Makoto, honesty; Mayor and Chugi, loyalty. They practiced meditation techniques for controlling anger, breathing exercises for managing stress, mental discipline for making better choices under pressure. Other inmates noticed. Rico approached one day. "Can I learn too?" Then T-Bone, then Snake, then others from different groups, men from rival gangs who normally wouldn't speak to each other, all sitting together in Kenji's informal samurai school. The transformation was remarkable. Brick, who'd been involved in a dozen fights over 8 years, went 3 months without a single violent incident. Rico, who'd been in and out of solitary for disciplinary issues, started helping younger inmates adjust to prison life. T-Bone began a GED program he'd ignored for years. The prison guards noticed. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, a tough 15-year veteran, pulled Kenji aside one day. "What are you doing with these men?" "Teaching them what my grandfather taught me," Kenji said. "That strength comes from discipline, not dominance. That respect comes from character, not fear. That even here, even after we've made terrible mistakes, we can still choose to be better." "It's working," Martinez admitted. "Violence in your block is down 40%. Disciplinary infractions are down 30%. The warden wants to make it official. Would you run a formal program?" "I'd be honored," Kenji said. Within months, the Way of the Peaceful Warrior became an official rehabilitation program at Rikers Island. Kenji taught 3 times a week: philosophy, meditation, conflict resolution, anger management, all rooted in bushido principles adapted for modern prison life. Men who'd been enemies for years sat together in his classes. Gang members from different sets learned to meditate side by side. The program couldn't solve everything. Prison was still brutal, still dangerous, but it created pockets of peace in an ocean of violence. Thank you for watching this incredible story from Behind Bars Tales. If Kenji's journey of honor, restraint, and transformation moved you, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Share this story with someone who needs to understand that wisdom and preparation can overcome size and violence, that ancient traditions still have power in the modern world, and that even in our darkest moments, we can become teachers who change lives. Subscribe now for more powerful true stories from inside America's prison system. Because sometimes the smallest person in the room is the strongest. Sometimes the quietest voice speaks the loudest truth. And sometimes the legacy of our ancestors gives us the strength to transform not just ourselves, but everyone around us.